really do appreciate taking the time to be here today to end this session. Now, let me acknowledge the persons here today. We have our director, Dr. Belton Good, who is the executive director of the Bureau of Standards Jamaica. We also have the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority. And I want to also acknowledge, I'm not sure if I'm seeing him on yet. I think I am seeing that individual, Mr. Marco Duran, who is the United Environmental Program representative, Mrs. Chief Executive Officer of the Consumer Affairs Commission, and of course, all other stakeholders, extension of the BSJ and NCRA family. A very warm welcome to you all. All right, if I may be allowed to. So you should be seeing on screen, if the projection was taken down, the program. I'm not seeing it projected now, but it was there just now. So just to outline what we will be today. So just to give some amount of context. So I'm going to be just giving an overview, a brief overview. Let me just share my screen just to ensure that you are in fact seeing my screen. Let me. Okay. All right, so the program is now projected. So I'm going to be giving a brief overview of the two entities, the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority. Followed by that, we will have greetings of the two entities. We'll then have our Director of Metrology and Testing giving us an overview as to the rationale for this session and the objectives. And then we will hear from our technical officers who will then, as we say, go into the meat of the matter. And of course, after that, we turn things over to you where you may ask questions, state concerns, because we really want the session to be an engaging session. So we will be sharing information, but of course, we want to hear from you. And then that is the primary objective. Yes, we'll be passing on information about the program. But as your voice, we want to hear from you. We want your input. We do value your input. And so I'll just go right into that segment where I will now give an overview of the two entities. So Mr. Gale, if I may be allowed to share my screen, I think you have to stop projecting. All right, so let's see. Okay, our screen. I just want somebody to indicate that sometimes these. Okay, so I am now sharing. Are you seeing?
Yes, Maxine, I'm seeing.
Okay, great.
Yes, we are.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you so much. Okay, so just to give you a little background into the two entities, as I said earlier. Now, once upon a time, or no, I tell you what, I'm not going to be long story. So the short version of the history of the Bureau of Standards Jamaica and how the NCRA was birthed. So the short version of the long story is that the Bureau of Standards Jamaica It was established in 1969. Now, over the years, the Bureau has actually evolved. And so in that evolution, we have seen somewhat of a transition and a change in terms of the core, the roles of the role of the entity. And so prior to 2015, the entity, well, we had a name change, of course, underwent as well. So it was the Jamaica Bureau of Standards, then transitioning to the Bureau of Standards Jamaica. Up to 2015, the entity that was the BSJ overall responsibility, which included the regulatory function. And so we operated essentially as facilitator and regulator. Now in 2015, by order of cabinet, there was a separation of the roles or the function of the Bureau of Standards Jamaica. Now, the Bureau of Standards, or the BSJ, now took on a primarily facilitatory role. So its newly evolved role is that of a facilitator of business development and trade. Now, the value proposition of the BSJ, so the BSJ facilitator with an optimal combination of high quality services, world-class facilities that addresses the needs of the customer and enables quality compliance and ultimately business success. Now, the BSJ provides services on broad headings. The entity, actually, in terms of the number of services, is quite vast. So, over 200 services, and those services are under these broad headings. So we have standards development or organization. There is also metrology, conformity assessment, and conformity involves testing, calibration, and certification. So we do have the certification arm of the Bureau, which is also separated, and that is the National Certification Body of Jamaica. And then we also have the training services that is offered. So as I said, the services, it's quite vast, over 200 to pull up a number. And so that is now the evolved Bureau of Standards Jamaica, a facilitator. Now in 2015, as I said earlier, now this entity known as the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority was birthed. And so the NCRA, that's the acronym, now that entity is separated from the BSJ. So there's a firewall, if you will. And this was established by, as I said earlier, a cabinet that was taken. So it was recognized that there needed to be a separate regulator as opposed to your facilitator to ensure that you have that clearly defined role of both entities. Now, the NCRA carries out the functions of the Bureau of Standards Jamaica as set out in the governing legislation, and that those legislation being the Standards Act, the Processed Food Act, and the Weights and Measures Act. So the authority is derived from these acts as set out in the legislation. The NCRA has responsibility for registering processed food establishments, market surveillance, inspecting goods at the ports of entry, and in the domestic markets for compliance. Now, they also have responsibility for regulating for legal metrology. And legal metrology involves inspection of measuring instruments used in trade, etc. So the short version of the long story, the National Compliance and regulator came to being. Now, what we're doing here today, it's a collaborative effort because both entities are in fact very integral in what is called the National Quality Infrastructure of Jamaica. And the National Quality Infrastructure of Jamaica comprises of 4 pillars. Now, what you're seeing projected on your screen, just to give you an appreciation of the magnitude or the responsibility of the Bureau of Standards Jamaica and that of the NCRA as well. Now, of the 4 pillars, which constitutes the National Quality Infrastructure of Jamaica. And those pillars, standards development, conformity assessment, metrology, and accreditation. Now, of the 4 pillars, the BSJ has responsibility for 3 of those 4 pillars. And then there's the NCRA right there in the middle, holding it up. And so the mandate of both entities, it's very important in terms of how we impact the National Quality Infrastructure of Jamaica. So this session here today, as I said, it is a collaborative effort as part of the mandate that the 2 entities carry. And I did give you the background as to how the NCRA came to be. And so generally, what we seek to do is to communicate the information. We have several other stakeholders online with us today, and even in the Jamaican market sometimes because of the knowledge of the prior role of the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, we always seek to communicate that the regulatory function now resides with the NCRA. And so after having the history, if you will, as to how the entities came to be and where we are today, you will be hearing from the head of the 2 entities. You will be hearing now from the executive director of the BSJ, Dr. Felton Gooden. He will be bringing greetings. He will then be followed by the chief executive officer of the NCRA, Dr. Laurice Edwards Brown. So I will now turn over to Dr. Gooden and Dr. Edwards Brown, who will now bring greetings.
Moderator, Ms. Maxine Fagan, Manager, Communication and Customer Service. Dr. Laurice Edwards Brown, Chief Executive Officer, National Compliance and Regulatory Authority, NCRA. Mr. Hunter, who is the Director of Metrology and Testing. Mr. Marco Duran, United Nations Environment Program. Mrs. Dulcie Allen, Chief Executive Officer, Consumer Affairs Commission. And to our presenters, Dr. Wendell Richards, Inspector in Charge, Import and Domestic Commodities Inspectorate. Mr. Nigel Davids, Technical Officer. Ms. Tanisha Mattis, Inspector, Import and Domestic Commodities Inspectorate. Representatives from CARICOM, Regional Organization for Standards and Quality, CROSQ. Representatives from regional standards bodies. Representatives from the Ministry of Finance and Public Service, Industry, Investment and Commerce, Science, Energy and Technology, as well as Health and Wellness. Other stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure this morning to bring greetings to you as we seek to sensitize and to facilitate discussion on the energy efficiency testing services the CARICOM labeling program, and the regulatory requirements which are coordinated by the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority, NCRA, or partners in the staging of this session. Governments across the region spend millions of dollars annually on oil imports, and a significant amount of the spend goes, as you're aware, to providing energy and electricity. Promoting energy efficiency practices such as the utilization of equipment which is energy efficient would potentially reduce the money spent on oil imports and result in the channeling of some of these funds to other areas of the economy, which is well needed. The BSJ, as a national standards body, we recognize the significance of advocating energy efficiency by promoting or providing facilities to ascertain conformity assessment. Under the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality, CROSSQ, Quality Infrastructure for Sustainable Energy in the Caribbean, QSEC, project, it is anticipated that energy efficiency testing laboratory will attain accreditation to the ISO IC 17025 accreditation program. Attainment of accreditation then will result in its designation as a Caribbean reference laboratory for the testing of things like refrigerators, freezers, and small air conditioning units. In October of 2017, the BSJ launched its energy efficiency testing program, and subsequent to that, upgraded its energy efficiency laboratory, which increased in testing capacity significantly. This upgrade was supported by the World Bank project, bolstered the testing capacity with the acquisition of additional test chambers and testing stations for refrigerators, freezers, wine coolers, and later air conditioners. The equipment acquired was officially commissioned back in July of 2018, and we believe one of the primary objectives to be achieved is the promotion of energy efficient appliances. By virtue of the services provided, the Bureau of Standards Jamaica will contribute to lower energy costs and providing the Jamaican economy, which is often characterized as high energy intensive with low efficiency. I note that we have a number of stakeholders represented here today. And as we seek to illuminate the issue of energy efficiency, testing and awareness, building of the testing facility and regulatory requirements, I trust, ladies and gentlemen, that this will not only be a forum for information dissemination, but one of information exchange and also engagement. We encourage you, therefore, to ask questions, to state concerns, and to make recommendations. We all have a stake in promoting energy efficiency. The BSJ and the NCRA in partnership in fulfilling our mandate as part of the National Quality Infrastructure of Jamaica, you, the manufacturers, importers, distributors, and indeed all other stakeholders. It is no doubt that conversations surrounding this very important subject matter can influence consumer behavior, purchasing decisions, and ultimately Jamaica's energy consumption and wider economy. We do appreciate you taking the time to participate in this session today and trust that as stakeholders together, we appreciate the importance of promoting energy efficiency and being advocates in our own right. Thank you again for being here, and we do look forward to the later discussions. So at this point, I will hand over to our moderator.
Dr. Edwards Brown will now bring greetings. Thereafter, Mr. Hunston Hunter, Director of Metrology and Testing, will communicate the rationale.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Today I want to recognize the Executive Director of the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, Dr. Belton Gooden. I want to also recognize Mr. Marco Duran, United Nations Environment Program representative, here with us today. We have Mrs. Dulcie Allen, who is the CEO of the Consumers Affairs Commission. We have representatives from the ministries of Finance and Public Service, Industry and Commerce, Science, Energy and Technology. We have our homegrown members of the team, Mr. Hunter, who is the Director of Metrology and Testing, and our very own Dr. Wendell Richards, who is in charge of the Inspectorate, who will be giving oversight for this program. And also Ms. Tanisha Mattis, who is ably leading and joining Dr. Richards in this effort. Also recognize Mr. Nigel Davids, who is a technical officer at the BSJ. To all of us who are participating in this event this morning, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to help us to contribute to national development and our own regional growth. I greet you well and I say happy Wednesday to you all. Today, I take the pleasure in joining with Dr. Belton Gooden to welcome you to this session on bringing you in awareness and engaging you on the energy efficiency testing and the labeling program to be offered by both the NCRA and the BSJ. Energy efficiency, by definition, refers to a method of minimizing energy consumption by utilizing less energy to procure the same quantity of utilizable output. Let's say, for example, an energy efficient 12-watt LED bulb that would use 75 to 80% less energy than a 60-watt traditional bulb, but provides the same amount of light. That's something that we need to spread the message out there. So essentially, this is what we're about today, helping our consumers to manage energy and ultimately helping all the participating countries in this program to manage our energy bills. Energy efficiency is possible, and the NCRA and the BSJ wants to encourage all of us to do our part in ensuring that this program is successful. We want to take into consideration the significant benefits to be earned from utilization of energy efficient items. The NCRA is very pleased that we have achieved this milestone. As you have heard, and you will hear a countless number of times during this session today, that this program requires all of us, importers, distributors, retailers of refrigerators, freezers, wine coolers, room air conditioning units, to submit these items for tests to the energy efficiency labs, and so that the appropriate labeling can be recognized and attached to these units. This means that those of you who would be engaged, or as any of you would have an intention to sell these products in the region, will now be required that each unit is registered and tested prior to the sale in the regional market. The units will then be subsequently affixed with the corresponding energy efficiency label. Over time, as Dr. Gooden mentioned, we have had steady progress in this program. Some of you would have been part of the program in the embryonic stages, that we would have collected some samples from you. We would have taken some time to develop a program around that. And now we're at the stage where we can do a full launch of the program. and we're excited to have you, and we want to really acknowledge your dedication to this program. You are all important in helping us to achieve the success that we desire. As suppliers, educating your consumers to the benefits of purchasing more energy efficient products should be essential to your operations. Consumers need to know that energy efficient purchases should not be viewed as an expense, but rather should be viewed as an investment with utility savings that add up over the life of the service of the product. These savings can be offset with the official price that may seem to be at a premium, but essentially over a period of time, there is significant return in comparison to the conventional non-efficient alternatives. So we encourage you to spread the word in your business operations. Through this program and by working with you in your several organizations, in your several capacities, we will be able to improve energy efficiency and leverage our resources together to capitalize on the expertise and unique abilities of this program and of the energy-wise products. The NCRA and the BSJ, we have recognized that we cannot do it alone, and you have a critical role to play. The energy efficiency testing and labeling program will shape for our future, our children and my grandchildren, the energy dynamics has already begun to change. The time to transition to more energy efficient, cost saving, and reliable products is now. We know that some of you have been double booked this morning. We know that we are all zoomed out, and we have several meetings which you could have ultimately chosen to participate in. But we thank you that you choose to spend your morning with us. And so without further ado, I will now release you and allow you to get to the crux of the matter from our technical experts. Thank you again for your time, and together we can make it work. Thank you so much. Back to you, moderator.
All right, thank you, Dr. Brown. All right, now, as I said, we'll now be hearing from Mr. Funston Hunter. He is at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica of the Metrology and the Testing Division. So that division ultimately has responsibility for the energy efficiency lab. That is where the team resides in that division. And so he will now give us an overview as to why we are here today, the objective of the energy efficiency program. Over to you, Mr. Hunter.
Moderator, Maxine Fagan, Manager, Communication and Customer Service. Dr. Velton Gooden, our Executive Director of the BSJ. Dr. Loris Edwards Brown, CEO of the NCRA. Mr. Marco Duran, United Nations Environment Program. Mrs. Dulce Hein, Chief Executive Officer, Consumer Affairs Commission. Dr. Wendell Richards, Inspector in Charge of the NCRA. Mr. Nigel Davids, our Technical Officer of the BSJ. Ms. Tanisha Mattis, Inspector of the NCRA. Representatives from CARICOM, Cross-Q Regional Standards for Quality. Representatives from the regional standards bodies. Representative from the Ministry of Investment, Industry and Commerce, Science, Energy and Technology, Ministry of Health and Finance and Public Services, and other stakeholders. Pleasant morning to you all. So today we're here to build awareness on the energy efficiency testing and labeling program for refrigerators, freezers, wine chillers, and room air conditioners. Now, to begin, I would like to share some pertinent background information as it relates to the use of fossil fuels. Now, the Caribbean region is faced with many varied and challenges associated with the high cost of electricity. This is based on the fact that the Caribbean community member states rely almost exclusively on imported fossil fuels to generate electricity. In the case of Jamaica, imported petroleum meets 95% of the nation's needs, energy needs. Additionally, between 2010 and 2018, Jamaica spent approximately US $10.6 billion importing crude oil, with an average spending of US $1.1 billion annually. Significant efforts are being made to change this profile, and there is now a trend towards more sustainable and cheaper sources, specifically solar, wind, and hydroelectrical facilities. Nonetheless, consumers and businesses in the region are faced with extremely high electricity bills. This reliance on fossil fuel also leads to environmental and greenhouse gas emission issues in the form of global warming, intensifying the region's vulnerability to climate change and environment pollution. The effects of global warming have been known to contribute to the occurrence of premature death in humans. Researcher Jason West found that aggressively reducing greenhouse gas emissions could help to prevent 3 million to 7 million premature deaths annually by the year 2030. To reduce the use of fossil fuel, which contributes to the two effects mentioned previously, that is soaring energy costs and environmental impact due to the greenhouse gas emissions, Jamaica has enacted an energy conservation policy to realize the benefits of energy efficiency through reduced energy consumption and by extension, a reduction in Jamaica's energy bill. Now, in keeping with this policy and standards and the Standards Act, the BSJ and the NCRA have established an energy efficiency and labeling program for refrigerators, freezers, wine chillers, and room air conditioners. Hence, we are having this session to build awareness on the program. Now, why are we here? What are the objectives of this session? Well, this session is intended to raise awareness on 1, the regulatory framework of the program, 2, the energy efficiency testing of appliances, mainly refrigerators, I would have mentioned earlier, freezers, wine chillers, air conditioners, intended for household use. Thirdly, the CARICOM energy efficiency label, and also to promote energy efficient appliances, which should influence consumers' purchasing decisions for household appliances. Now, subsequent to this session and feedback, the next step would be for manufacturers, importers, retailers, distributors, with the intention of selling any of the aforementioned products in Jamaica, will be required to have each model unit registered and tested and an energy efficiency label affixed prior to being offered to the market. My colleagues will give further details of the program during their presentations, and I want to thank you very much. Over to you, Ms. Moderator.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hunter. Now we have the technical officers who will now dive deeper in terms of what we are going to be, why we're here today, essentially. And just to say that these individuals who will be presenting, they will actually, in essence, be the face of the energy efficiency program. We have Dr. Wendell Richards, who is the inspector in charge and Domestic Commodities Inspectorate at the NCRA. We also have Mr. Nigel Davids, who is a technical officer here at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, and Ms. Tanisha Mattis, who is an inspector, the Import and Domestic Commodities Inspectorate Division of the NCRA. So they will now go into their presentation, and so I invite them to do so. Thereafter, as I said, it will be your turn to engage, to ask questions, and to raise any concerns you may have. Your questions till the end of the presentation, and then we will address the questions. So I'd invite you to make a note of any points that would have raised your interest. And at the end of the presentation, you may ask your questions, and then we will address those points. Okay, Dr. Richards.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Special good morning to all special invited guests, especially my compliance colleagues at the various bureaus in the Caribbean. This morning, we've invited you to explain our energy efficiency labeling program. Okay, I'll just summarize what you've heard already. And the objectives are to lower Jamaica's carbon footprint, lower the cost of the importation of fuel, reduce the vulnerability to climate change and environmental pollution. Very important is the registration of distributors and importers of energy efficient appliances. Okay, there will be a monitoring aspect of the program. The inspectors will be visiting your establishments to monitor compliance. Okay, so these are the target groups: manufacturers, importers, distributors, and retailers. Okay, and the consumers. Okay, the scope. Okay, so registration. All importers and manufacturers of commodities where compulsory standards exist must be registered.
Dr. Richards, you're muted. Dr. Richards.
I don't think he's hearing. Dr. Richards, are you hearing? Dr. Richards? Just, okay, Doctor, are you here?
He's on mute.
You're on mute. You're muted actually. Okay. All right, so we lost a few seconds of what you said. You were muted. If you could just go over.
Yes. Okay, let's go again. We had a bit of a technical glitch. So, well, good morning again. Special morning again, and special good morning to all the special invited guests, especially my compliance colleagues at the various bureaus in the Caribbean. We invited here this morning to discuss registration, okay? And all importers and manufacturers where compulsory commodities exist must be registered. Registration is via the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority. NCRA's inspectors, specifically those in the important commodities inspectorate, will be monitoring compliance. Now, what gives NCRA, BSJ, and NCRA this power? It's the legislation. So, under Section 8B of the Standards Regulations, any person who, for the purpose of sale, imports into Jamaica, manufactures or processes any commodity for which a compulsory standard specification has been declared shall be registered under this regulation in respect of that commodity. Okay, so we have the Standards Regulations of 1983, the Standards Amendments Regulations 1999, and Standards Amendments Regulations 2012. Next slide. What are these compulsory specifications? Jamaican Standard Specification for the Labeling of Energy Efficient Appliances, JS1 Part 21. Now, this particular standard gives the specifications for the labeling of the appliances. All right. Currently, you can go to the BSJ's website, shop.bsj.org.jm, and you can purchase this standard if you're interested. Okay. The other two standards are the testing standards. So the Jamaican Standard Specification for the
Dr. Richards, maybe what we could do, we could ask Mr. Wallace to share screen. Since we, for whatever reason, we're not seeing your screen, we could try to do that, and then you could just continue to make the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Again, we recognize that we're having some technical glitches. Dr. Richards is working with the team to sort it out, and then you will begin all over again. So please bear with us another minute so that we can rectify the situation. Thank you for your patience.
Of technology.
Okay, so good morning again.
All right.
Good morning again. And sorry for the technical difficulties. Okay. Good morning to all specially invited guests and our colleagues at the various bureaus in the region. Okay, so we invite you today to explain our registration program for the Energy Efficient Registration Program. Program is targeting importers and manufacturers of commodities where compulsory standards exist. In this particular case, we have standards governing the energy efficient labeling of appliances. Registration will be via the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority, and the NCRA's inspectors in the compliance department will be monitoring the appliances for conformance to the labeling standards. Now, what gives the BSJ and the NCRA the power to carry out this program? It's the legislation, the standards regulations of 1983. It says, Section 8B says, any person who for the purpose of sale imports into Jamaica, manufactures or processes any commodity for which a compulsory standard specification has been declared shall be registered with respect of that commodity. So we have the standards regulations of 1983, the standards amendments regulations of 1999, and the standards amendments regulations of 2012. Now, what are these standards? We have the Jamaican Standard Specification for the Labeling of Energy Efficient Appliances, JS1 Part 21. Now, this standard gives you the specifications with respect to labeling of these energy efficient appliances. And you may have heard me say before, you can have access to the standard by purchasing it online. You go to shop.bsj.org.jm and you will have access to the standard for a cost. The other two standards are the testing standards, the JS-CRS 57 and the JS-CRS 59. Now, what the JS means, it means Jamaican Standard. CRS means CARICOM Regional Standard. So therefore, Jamaica has adopted these two standards for testing of refrigerators and air conditioners. Now, it's the stakeholders' responsibility to do research before putting a product on the market. So if you're an importer, you're a distributor, and you have interest in putting a wine chiller on the Jamaican market, you have interest in putting a refrigerator, you should conduct due diligence. What does that mean? It means contact the NCRA. Okay? It means contacting the compliance department and having discussions with us, telling us what are your intentions. Okay? And we will walk you through the process. Sometimes it's long and it's tedious, but that's the path you have to travel to be compliant. Okay, so we're going to start by registration. We're going to start by registering you. So as I said before, under the law, you're supposed to be registered because you are importing a product where a compulsory specification has been declared. Okay, compliance with the relevant standards means purchasing the standards, reading the standards. If you don't understand the standards, get a technical person to walk you through, explain to you, get electronic copies of the standards, send them to your manufacturers. Very important. Send the standards, electronic copies, to your manufacturers so they can manufacture the product in conformance with the local standards, with Jamaican standards. Okay? Now, what does registration entail? It means registering via 360.ncra.org.jm. What is the information that we need? We need your primary contact information, business name, primary address, receivable. This means where your imported goods are going to be stored. Okay, if you have more than one address, you need to declare that, because we've seen that importers have several addresses where they store product. Your clearance method, whether you're AEO. AEO is authorized economic operator, whether it's on the port or whether it's site. Site is at your warehouse. Type of import. What are you importing? Country of origin. Where was the product manufactured? That's very important. We take that very serious. That particular specification, we take that very seriously. Total consignment per annum. You need to declare that, okay? Whether you're a seasonal importer or not. Product common name, your supplier, your brand name, model number, serial number. This is very important. So next slide. We're going to just give you a view. So when you go to 360.ncra.org.jm, we're just going to give you a quick view of what to expect when you go there. Now, when you go to 360.ncra.org.jm, you'll be given two options: register and to log in. What you need to do is to register before you log in. Login is on your left, register is on your right. Composing a password. It's going to ask you to re-enter that password. When you do that, you're going to get an email. That email is just validation that the email address actually works and is real. Okay? Then you log in. When you log in, this is what you should see. This is the application form. This is the
Sorry, we're not seeing the website.
Okay.
And stop sharing and share the new screen.
Okay, so the registration form. I think we're having some technical difficulties again. Okay, yeah. So here you go. Are you an importer? Are you a manufacturer? Okay, this is actually an importer and local manufacturer registration form. Well, let me make this clear. The overseas manufacturers, you are not supposed to use this. This is actually for our importers and our local manufacturers, right? Because as I explained before, under the law, they're supposed to be registered. Okay, so this is primarily for the importers and local manufacturers. Okay,
Dr. Richards, I think the problem they're having, they're not seeing your screen.
Your tax registration number, that's very important. Okay, tax compliance certificate, it's also very important.
Dr. Richards, you're not sharing the website.
Application details, your name. You need a primary person concerned with the organization or your company.
We're trying to make contact with.
We want somebody who we can contact. If we have an issue, somebody who we can.
No, sorry, they're saying they're not seeing the screen that you're talking about.
Oh, it's sharing, but I'm not sure.
Stop share and start. Stop sharing.
To stop share first and then share the new screen.
Thank you. He was not hearing the comments. He has been alerted. Thank you.
Okay, so here we go again. I hope you can see the screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe,
so
could you maybe go
just
back?
Continuing. This is just a view of what you see when you get into register. As I was saying, ensure that the person who's entering the information is a primary contact. Okay, someone who, if we call the phone, we send an email, we get a response. Trading name. Now, some companies they have a business name and then there's a trading name. We need all of that information. Okay. As I mentioned before, your receiver location, where your goods are going to be stored. mention the clearance methods, AEO, port clearance, site clearance.
Sorry, Dr.
Okay.
Richards.
Dr.
Then you
Richards.
declare
Oh, see,
what
already
type
running
of
it.
product. You see the section
Just
here,
a moment,
appliances,
Dr.
construction
Richards, I'm so
materials,
sorry to
packages.
interrupt.
Your section will be appliances.
Dr. Richards?
Okay. Then you would put
Are
in
you
your model
hearing?
numbers,
Is anybody
in the product
within
detail,
Dr.
the
Richards'
common name
vicinity?
of the product, the
Just
supplier, the brand.
tap him on the shoulder a
model.
little bit. We need to get his
Country of origin, as I
attention.
said before, is very important. Now, this
Team
other
members
section,
by that
it deals with
section,
labels.
could you just
This is not for your industry.
indicate to him that we
Okay.
need to
This is
have him
actually
pause
for
just a
other-
bit? I don't know if Ms. Mattis, are you close to Dr. Richards? Dr. Richards, are you hearing?
I am hearing you, Ms. Fagan.
Okay, all right. So we have some indication. Persons were not following initially, and they would want you to go back a bit to start the website and the information that you would have communicated.
And that is the 360
They were not
website.
following. The screen was not up, and they want to actually have you walk them through it.
Okay,
The
absolutely.
outset.
Okay.
So you're not planning on sharing the 360 website?
Yeah, I am. It's been sharing.
So you're now seeing the screen.
Yes, we are seeing the screen.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Go ahead, Dr. Richard.
Okay. All right. Sorry for the technical glitches. I'm just going to go back a bit for those who may have missed what I was saying. All right. What we just did here a while ago is just to show you what you would see. This is our importer registration form, and this information, we're collecting this information in our database. All right. We are fulfilling the requirements of the law, and importers of appliances, energy efficient appliances, you will be the first to be actually using this portal. Okay, so let's go again. Okay, and I made the point that primarily, we would want somebody who's intimately a local manufacturer, not for our overseas manufacturers. Okay, this is just fulfilling the requirements of the law. Okay, so are you an importer? Are you a manufacturer? Are you registering for the first time? Your tax registration number, very important. So your business tax registration number is what we need. Your tax compliance certificate, is it valid? Yes or no? Applicant's name, and again, somebody who's intimately associated, somebody who when we call on the phone or we send an email, we're gonna get a response. Your partner's names, okay, the principal address. Okay, so we want your business address and we also want your warehouse address. Okay, so the receiver location is where your imported goods go, whether it's a warehouse or whatever, free zone or whatever it is. Okay, we spoke again about port clearance, AEO, which is the authorized economic operator. Some importers have been declared AEO by customs, others have site privileges, others you clear your goods on the port. You need to declare that information to us. Okay, your particular industry is appliances. So you would tick that box that says appliances. Okay, as we go down, you give the common names. It's a refrigerator, give as much detail as possible on that refrigerator. Okay, the supplier, who's the supplier? Give us that information. The brand and the model and the serial numbers. These are very important information that we need. The country of origin, also critical. Now, this other section doesn't apply to your industry.
Dr. Richards.
Okay? This refers to like prepackaged goods and stuff. So this doesn't apply. So you don't have to worry about type of label. What I also want to remind you or inform you is that you're going to need an electronic signature. Okay, it is legal in Jamaica to use electronic signatures. So when this document is completed, we would like you to upload your electronic signature, okay, and sign the document, okay? So we'll go back to the presentation. Okay, someone is trying to ask a question.
Yes, Dr. Richards, my name is Giselle Tejedo. I work in PriceSmart. I'm the regulatory manager, corporate regulatory manager in PriceSmart. I understand that these registrations.
Okay, someone is trying to ask a question. What's the question?
I think we want to, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I think, thank you very much for your question. Giselle, I hope I'm.
All right, I'll continue until we find out exactly what that question is.
I want you to
So
actually
we'll stop
hold your
sharing the screen.
questions until the end of the
We'll head back to
presentation. Just
the-
make a note of the question. I don't want you to forget the question. So we do thank you for the question, but we want to hold the questions until the end of the presentation. Then we'll address all the questions.
Recording in progress.
So, Dr. Richards, so we have a question. Giselle is going to make a note, and then at the end of the presentation, we'll address her question. So
Okay.
go ahead and complete your presentation.
What she's saying at the end of the presentation, take the question. Okay, so these are the technical information that we require. Okay, so you're going to send us this information via an email, the nominal power. So with respect to air conditioners, you're importing air conditioners, you need to send us the nominal power, the category, the split. Yeah, so we need to get the nominal power, right? The nominal power, the category, whether it's split or compact model inside, whether it's an inside model outside, and the seasonal energy efficiency ratio. Now, for inverter air conditioners, okay, you must submit the instructions how to adjust the speed of the unit, okay? So keep a note of that. The inverter air conditioners, we need the instructions how to adjust the speed of the unit. Our refrigerators, send us the total volume in liters, the cold compartment, freezer volume, energy consumption, right, in kilowatt per year. Okay, so this is a quick process flow for the importers, right? So pay attention again. You are going to register via 360.ncra.org. We're going to create a pro forma invoice for you, okay? The importers now, you can submit a sample to the BSJ for testing. You have that option, okay? We have two options, option A and option B. This is option A, because we know there are some importers who may not engage the manufacturer directly. Some persons go to Panama to shop, they might purchase from a supplier and not necessarily from the manufacturer. So if that's your particular situation, we're giving you this option, which is to register. You have to register. So register, we will generate a pro forma invoice. Secondly, submit the sample to the BSJ for testing. We would submit the sample. The sample has been tested. We get a test report. We analyze the test report. You would be issued with a pre-shipment authorization certificate. Now, this is a compliance certificate saying you can go ahead and import a commercial shipment into Jamaica. Okay, and step 6, once it's compliant, we will issue you with the number of labels that is required. All right, so let me go over that again. This particular step is for the importers who do not engage their manufacturers. Okay, these are probably like small importers and they go shopping, maybe Panama, maybe China, whatever it is, but they don't necessarily engage the manufacturer. Okay, so we're giving you this option. You have to register. You will get a pro forma invoice with the cost, okay, and your program fees, which will be demonstrated later on at the end of the presentation. So you submit your sample to the BSJ. The product has been tested. A test report will be generated. We will review that report, analyze that report. The report is compliant. We will inform you that the product is compliant. We will issue you with a pre-shipment authorization certificate, which is a compliance certificate. What this certificate will do is just sort of remove the bureaucracy. And we're saying to you, yes, we have enough confidence in this particular product, so you can go ahead and bring a commercial shipment. When you bring that shipment, based on the numbers You'll have to give us that information as well. We will issue you with the requisite number of labels. Pre-shipment inspection. Now, this is critical and very important. Now, I touched on it in the previous slide. We're going to go a bit more detail in this. Pre-shipment inspection. Now, pre-shipment inspection is inspection of accredited test results. Now, this is where the manufacturers come in. Okay, now you want to send a product to the market. It also applies to the importer. You want to bring a product and put it on the Jamaican market, you need to get us accredited test results. Okay, we can trace the establishment, you know, if it's actually accredited and the period of accreditation. Okay, quality certificates, inspection certificates. You need to gather this information and send that information to us. We would review that information to determine compliance to the relevant standards. Okay, now what are the benefits of pre-shipment inspection? Okay, it's a removal of bureaucracy. Okay, the benefits, you get a certificate, you actually have a certificate. So when that shipment comes here and it's on the port, customs not going to harass you. All right, you're not going to have any sort of bureaucracy or anything like that, because this certificate is actually saying that this set of products actually conform to a particular standard, and you have permission from the BSJ NCRA to import that product into Jamaica. Okay, so as I said before, it removes bureaucracy, ease of doing business, and reduce risk in terms of costs and delays. Okay, you're doing business and time is money. Increase competitiveness. Okay, because you would have followed a sequence of steps to gain compliance. So it increased competitiveness. No delays on the port. You can get your product to market as quickly as possible. Okay, overview of any shortcomings, no surprises. Okay, decisions can be taken based on the content of the report. Okay, next slide. Now, this other step, option B, is for the manufacturers. For example, as currently exists, there are manufacturers who contact me directly. They want to send a product and they contact me directly. Okay, so if you want to send a product, what we have been doing so far, we've been testing the efficiency and the effect of the pre-shipment authorizing certificate. So we haven't been charging you because the lab wasn't exactly ready and we didn't want any delays. So we issued you that pre-shipment certificate based on the compliance of international standards. However, we want to do our verification checks here in Jamaica. So you will still be given that pre-shipment certificate. However, we would issue now with a pro forma invoice. This is a new step. You will be issued with a pro forma invoice. So what we're saying, the manufacturers must pay for the testing. Okay? So you need to discuss that with the importers and manufacturers. You need to discuss that. And we are recommending that the manufacturer pay for the testing. Okay? We'll give you a pro forma invoice with the costs. Okay? And then we will issue now with a pre-shipment certificate. Okay? As usual, the manufacturer should also send the pre-shipment documents, as you have been doing. Send me your quality certificates, test results, inspection certificates, and we would review those. Based on that, you'll be issued with a pre-shipment certificate. Okay? When that commercial shipment comes here now, another new step, we are going to detain that shipment. Okay, so we're going to take a sample, inspector will take a sample. If that product is compliant after testing, we will issue the distributor. Now you also have to declare who are your distributors. So all of the manufacturers, I'm saying to you this morning, you need to declare to me, to our department, who are your local distributors, who are your importers in Jamaica. Okay, because when the products are compliant, we'll be issuing them now with the labels. Okay, another new step as well, we had a meeting on Monday, and we discussed, we will be giving the manufacturers a different pre-shipment certificate. So the current pre-shipment certificate will continue to exist, but we're going to design a new one specifically for the manufacturer, right, with less information. Okay, and the current pre-shipment certificate, which we have been issuing, will continue, but specifically, so far everybody has been getting that document. Going forward, only the importer will be getting that pre-shipment, the one that currently exists, or we will be designing a new pre-shipment certificate for the manufacturer. So once your product has been deemed to be compliant, you'll be given a certificate. Okay. Be careful when shipping the products. Okay, pack the appliances to minimize damage or breakage. Okay, we don't want to receive damaged goods. Okay, I've seen that where I visited the lab and noticed products have been damaged in transit. Okay, so ensure the products are packed properly, insulated so that they don't get any unnecessary damage. Okay, ship pack samples in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions for handling and storage. Submit instructions on the operating test conditions, such as ambient temperature, which is very important, very applicable, and power supply, voltage and frequency to be applied. Okay, so remember to submit all of these technical information. Market surveillance. This is where the inspectors come in. We will be monitoring the ports, we'll be monitoring the marketplace, we'll be doing random inspections in the marketplace. Appliance stores, department stores, warehouses, even supermarkets are selling appliances now. We'll be checking up in those places. Depots, right? We'll be checking up on all of those places. Authorization is your registration, right? Compliance of models on sale, validity of stickers. So we'll be checking the validity of stickers. So don't think you can just put a sticker on an appliance and we're going to be accepting it. We have ways of checking the validity. So we're asking persons, oh yeah, and important point. If there is an importer who is distributing to a third party, we need to have that information. Because when we go to any particular outlet and we see a label that's supposed to be, for example, Quartz, Singer, or whoever, we want to know why is this person with this particular appliance. So you need to reveal that information to us as well. Okay? If you're importing and you're going to be distributing to a third party, we need to have that information as well. Because when we check that sticker or we trace that sticker, it is for establishment X. But if establishment Z has that, they have to answer questions. Are we going to take enforcement actions? So to prevent any unnecessary enforcement actions and unnecessary investigations, you need to declare that information. Okay? Enforcement actions involve withdrawal from sale. We'll remove it from sale. We will detain products. Now, at the point of sale, the stickers are supposed to be on the appliance. If it's in your showroom, that energy efficient sticker is supposed to be on the appliance. You need to remove any sticker that may have accompanied the shipment. So we're all familiar with that yellow label on the appliances. You're supposed to remove that, and only the CARICOM energy efficiency label is supposed to be affixed to the appliance. Okay? And when the customer has purchased that appliance, you also need to issue that sticker to the customer. Enforcement. Well, our enforcement takes several stages. So we have an enforcement ladder. So this pyramid explains the enforcement ladder. So information and guidance, that's what we're doing now, right? We're giving you information, we're guiding you, giving you the steps to compliance. However, if we find non-compliance, for example, a product has failed, okay? You would get a test report letter. We give you a violation letter. You will get a copy of the test report analysis, okay? Informing you that this product is not compliant, okay? If, however, it is a frequent occurrence, we're going to step up our levels of enforcement. So we have to withdraw the product. We may have to detain, we may have to seize, maybe condemn the product, okay? If you continue with this action, and we may have to initiate court action, okay? And based on the law, there's a $3 million fine, okay? If this label, because if you put the product on the market and the product is non-compliant, it means it will not be compliant with respect to energy efficiency labeling, okay? So you should not put the product on the market unless it is compliant, unless we have informed you that the product is compliant and you have the necessary labels to establish that compliance. Okay, so as I mentioned before, violation letters, legal action if necessary, verification of affixed labels on the appliances in the marketplace, right? And we will remove any product which is wrongfully labeled will be removed from the marketplace. Okay, now, once the product is compliant, the information will go into a regional appliance database. Regional meaning CARICOM. So consumers in CARICOM could refer to that database and check for compliant products. If somebody wants to purchase an appliance, they don't necessarily have to call the office. They can, or any of the bureaus in the region, they can just go to this regional appliance database and check the model numbers and make their preference. So if you love Whirlpool, you can look for the appropriate Whirlpool model. If you love Mabe, you can choose the appropriate Mabe model that is compliant. All right. Information will be kept confidential, right? It will be secured. Okay. The CARICOM consumers will get a particular view. The regulators will have a particular view. The software developer has a particular view. So it will be secure. Okay. And all of this is just to encourage compliance. Now, if you get a test report and you're not happy with the test report, you think your product is compliant, the manufacturer told you this is an excellent product and it should be compliant, you have the right to file an appeal with the NCRA. So you can file an appeal within 30 days of the decision. So what the decision is, you get a test report or you get a letter from us, you have 30 days to file an appeal. Okay? Address the appeal to the chairman of the Enforcement Decision Review Committee. All right? So you address the letter to the Enforcement Decision Review Committee chairperson. Okay? Every document filed must contain an address within the jurisdiction the filing party expects to receive service. So you want us to respond to you, give us a valid email, give us a valid phone number, give us a valid address. Okay? Provide original documents. So any document that we will have issued to you, provide those documents. Any documents from the manufacturer, the supplier, whatever it is. Provide your original and 2 copies of each document to the appeals tribunal. Okay? Submit particulars of the appeal, and NCRA will respond within 21 days. It is important to remember to collect the samples. Now, these are bulky items. And as you know, refrigerators have grown in size. Okay? We don't have a lot of space. So it is important when we inform you that your product, we inform you and we give you a test report, that you collect the sample within 30 days. Okay? Some of you may want a retest. You can ask for a retest. In that case, you don't have to pick up the sample. But in cases where the product is compliant, you should pick up the sample within 30 days. Okay? Otherwise, the Bureau of Standards and the NCRA reserves the right to dispose of the items. I don't want the persons in the lab calling me, come and get your samples. That's what they're saying, no, come and get your samples. So make sure to come and pick up the samples once we contact you, once there's a communication, make arrangements. If it's a case where the manufacturer has sent the sample, the manufacturer must make arrangements with one of his distributors or importers in Jamaica to collect that sample. So just tell us who it is, and we'll make arrangements to have them come pick up the sample. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is hand you over to my colleague, Mr. Nigel Davis, who's an electrical engineer in the Regional Testing Center.
Okay, Dr. Richards, before, I know we have a general Q&A section at the end, but I know Giselle was chiming in. I don't know what you said would have answered her question. I think she had a question directly for you. So Giselle, do you still have that question? You want to pose it now, or?
Yes, I actually have several based on Dr. Richards' presentation, if I'm able to. Yes?
Go ahead.
So the first thing that I noticed on the registration website was that it requires serial numbers. And I am concerned with that requirement because serial numbers are unique numbers for each individual unit. So we can provide a model number, we can provide our internal number or code for the item, but a serial number would require us to provide one unique registration for every unit we implement versus doing a registration per model number. So I believe is going to be a problem for all of us that are trying to import. So I would love to hear from the NCRA about this requirement and why do they believe they need to have a registration for each serial number for each unit. I don't know if I get an answer right now or I should continue with the questions I have.
Okay. Okay. Could you repeat? We didn't get the question.
Dr. Richards, my name is Giselle Tejado. I'm the.
We know it's something about model numbers, but we didn't get the question in its entirety.
So the serial number, when you were showing the website where we need to register the items as importers.
Okay, hold on. The website.
The 360 website.
Okay, the website is specifically for the local importer.
Correct.
Not for
local
the
importer.
So if you are a manufacturer, an overseas manufacturer, you're not supposed to register on that website.
Yes,
Dr.
Richards, I'm speaking on behalf of Price Smart Jamaica.
Registered, right? So the manufacturer is not supposed to use that website. That is just for the local importer and manufacturer. The manufacturers, you can continue doing what you're doing, which is interacting with the department when you want to get a particular model approved. Okay?
Yes, Dr. Richards.
You can do it another way. If you're in dialogue with your importer, the importer here can do the registration for your product. Okay? So if you have a particular model number and you want that product in Jamaica, your importer in Jamaica can go to the website and register.
Dr. Richards.
Am I clear?
With Dr. Richards, I'm speaking on behalf of our company in Jamaica. We will register as an importer. And as an importer, my concern is that where you need to register, there is a section where you're asking for serial numbers. However, serial numbers are unique to the unit. So every single unit has a different serial number. I understand the request of providing a model number because that model number is the same for all model, for all.
Okay, that's fine. No, that's fine. That's okay. You can put the model number. Remember, this website is not only for appliances. Okay, this is for all products where compulsory standards exist. So we had to put as much information as possible to capture the type of information that we need, right? So it's understandable. Each particular refrigerator model has a different serial number. That's fine. You just put the model number. We're okay with that. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
And then on option A for the importers, when we are bringing in the products, is this something that needs to be done for shipment?
Oh, could you repeat?
Yes, when you were providing us with the different options that we
right.
in order to get the items registered.
Yeah.
Option A, which is the one that we'll probably use as importers, is this what we have to do per shipment, or is it per model? And the question goes, let me give you a little bit of background on why I'm asking this. In our case, we bring in consolidated containers. So we might bring in, I don't know, 6 units of one refrigerator today, but it's only 6 units. And then next week in another container, I'm going to bring in the same 6 refrigerators again, but it's the same model number. So would I have to do this process with every shipment? Or
no. If you have new model numbers, you can go back to the system and add those new model numbers, but you don't have to register the same model numbers over and over again.
Okay, so these once
okay, hold on, just before you continue, what we would encourage you to do, okay? Now, I know different companies operate differently, but if at the start of the year, whenever you're planning your business and like your shipments, if you can get as many model numbers as possible that you know you're going to be sending to Jamaica, you can add them all at once. Or as I mentioned before, you may have like different shipments. We have designed it in such a way that you can come back to the website and add those new models.
Okay, understood. And so this registration, does it have an expiration?
No. As long as you have new models, because we see new models coming all the time. So as you get the models, you just come to the website and you add them.
Okay, and then last, going through the options that you provided, are you within the law or the standard? Are you considering accepting or giving equivalency to other types to other energy efficiency programs from other countries or not?
Okay, in the first instance, let me answer it this way. In the first instance, if you, okay, we want the product tested according to our environmental conditions. Other countries, they may have met certain specifications, but the product may not have met the local environment local environment here, right? For example, the ambient temperature and all of these, because when the product is tested, there has to be an ambient temperature at which the refrigerators are being tested against. So what we've done is to allow you, if you can provide us with accredited test results according to some other international standard, we will accept it. However, as shown in the presentation, we want to verify here against our local standards. So what we will do is allow you to bring the shipment because it has met certain specifications of international standards, but with respect to the environment and stuff, we want to verify here. So you will be allowed to bring it, but we will do testing here.
Okay, understood. Thank you so much. And then last question, you did mention if there were other energy efficiency labels from other countries' programs that we must take off all of those labels before being able to put it on the sales floor. Did I understand this correctly?
Yes.
I don't know if there's other importers or retailers in this call, but I find that request not impossible, but difficult to comply with. Especially if the labels in some instances would be inside of the boxes, we would not necessarily be able to open the boxes and take them out.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. I was referring to the ones where those labels are stuck onto the appliance. Those are the ones I'm referring to. So if it's in the box, that's fine. It doesn't have to go on the appliance.
Yeah, no, what I meant was inside the box. So if I bring in a refrigerator, I have one refrigerator on display, and I understand I should not be showing that I can understand, not showing labels from other countries.
In other words, don't affix that label to the appliance. It's okay if it's shipped in the box, but it must not go on the appliance because we don't want to confuse the consumers. Okay.
Okay, so it's okay if the labels from other countries are inside the box, not touching the box, and when the consumers get them to their house, they may find other labels inside.
Yeah, because what is going to happen is that the local label is going to be affixed to the refrigerator when it's being sold. So
Dr. Richards, what would happen when we sell in closed boxes?
No, you broke up. I didn't get that last word that you said.
What happens when you're saying it needs to be affixed, and I understand affixed to the item. However, what happens when you sell closed boxes? So the consumer has already, or our customer has already looked at the appliance because it's on display and he likes it and he decides on the model that he's going to buy, but they are not buying the refrigerator that is on display. That's just a display unit, right? What they normally want is a closed box to know. So that's what I'm saying. I mean,
all right. Let me explain this way. There has to be some sort of consumer education as well. So following from this, we will have to have some sort of consumer education. So even if the international labels are in the box, the consumer will be issued with the local label. Okay?
Yes, of course, because the labels all specify for which law they are for.
Right. So when I was speaking previously, I was talking about having that label, that international label, stuck or fixed to the appliance. That shouldn't happen. But if it's in the box, fine, we don't have any problem with that. Okay, because when the person purchases that appliance, they're going to get it in a box, as you have said, and then the distributor or the retailer is going to issue the label, the label to demonstrate that this particular product is compliant.
Yeah, in our case, we are both importer and distributor. That's why I'm asking all of these questions.
Yeah.
So normally what we do in other countries, because this is something that we are already complying with in several of our countries, what we do normally is we make a small incision to the box, and then we drop in the label, the local energy efficiency label, because we can't open the box, right? Because if we open the box, the consumer thinks it's not new and they won't want to buy it. So dropping in the local energy efficient label, would it be okay with Jamaica?
You're saying dropping it in the box, if that's going to be okay?
Yeah, because you're saying.
Yeah. As long as it's issued to the consumer, we're fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah. So each shipment.
Thank you, everyone.
In other words, let me explain it this way. You're selling an appliance, just ensure the consumer gets the label. So whether you slip it in the box, whether you stick it in the appliance, however you do it, as long as the consumer gets the label. So the appliance must be sold with the label.
Thank you, Dr. Richard. Thank you for your patience, and thank you everyone else also for your patience.
Thank you, Giselle, for that question or questions. All right, Mr. Davids.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry about that. Good morning. I want to welcome you to our re-engagement of the Regional Energy Efficiency Program. And I'm here to present this morning on the Energy Efficiency Laboratory regarding what we offer and what the products that we can test for air conditioners, refrigerators, and in an extension, wine chillers. I want to welcome each and every one to the platform this morning. Dr. Gooden, our Executive Director. I want to welcome my director, Mr. Unston Hunter. He is the Director of the Metrology and Testing Division. I want to welcome my manager, Garfield Morgan, and all the electronic team. We are the team behind the testing, and we have combined to help each other to bring the products to the level of standard of testing that we want to meet for Jamaica and the region and the world in an extent. I also want to welcome all our esteemed guests. I want to make special welcome to David Barrett from the Cooling Initiative, members of the Cross-Q team that have been behind the effort of this lab reaching where it is. UNDP, Hyrie FM, we welcome you, that you could make it. Just keep it cool and Hyrie as we are here to present this morning. Dr. Edwards, we want to welcome Ms. Loris Edwards-Brown from the NCRA, CEO, and we want to welcome Ms. Pauline Harter. We want to just give a grand welcome to each and every one. If anyone feels a bit left out or have not been mentioned, it's based on the number of persons. Our other laboratories in Trinidad, Mr. Dudnat, we welcome you all the members from the region. Welcome. This morning, as we're about to present, before we go through our presentation, we would like to first give you a virtual tour of the laboratory, the Energy Efficiency Laboratory, before we start. So we'll proceed with a virtual tour.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Nigel, we're not seeing the screen just now. Yes, speaking. It's up. All right, we're seeing the screen now. Nigel, you may go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Just a second, a little technical glitch.
If you require any assistance, Nigel, Maureen could share screen. It has the presentation up as well.
You see the screen?
All right, so the team is having a little technical challenge at the moment. I see where they've indicated that they have audio challenges.
Right, welcome again. And sorry about the technical glitch that we have there.
We're hearing you now.
So we are here to let you understand where we are coming from with this energy efficiency testing laboratory. A laboratory which is deemed to be a center of excellence for the region.
Internet gone. The internet gone. We're hearing, you're not muted, and we're all set.
Okay, we are relocating to another area in the office. Please give him about 15 seconds to come across. Thank you.
Okay, so again, that is the nature of technology. So I hope you would have been taking in all the information that is being disseminated. I see some questions in the chat, which we will address after the remaining two presentations. We'll have the designated Q&A section, and then we will address all questions. Someone had requested Dr. Richards's email address that is posted in the chat. And so if you wish to make direct contact with Dr. Richards, then his email address is posted. You may do so. And of course, subsequent to this presentation, if you require any additional information, any guidance, then certainly we are here to assist. Earlier, you would have heard mention of the steps as it relates to your due diligence as importers, distributors, retailers, etc. And Dr. Richards would have mentioned the standards that are applied. Now, if it is that you wish to have sight of those standards, just by way of information, we have our Technical Information Center here at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, or the library as it is called. So if you wish to have sight of the particular standard, then you may do so. You may visit the BSJ library free of cost to view. If of course you need to utilize, then it's available at a cost. If it is that you need assistance in terms of interpreting the content of the standards, then again, we do provide that level of assistance. So we have our client servicing program, and we have our client servicing officers. So if it is that you require further assistance in interpreting the standards or any other bit of information, then we have these officers which they're here to assist, they're here to guide. Certainly feel free to reach out to our team members here at the BSJ, and by extension, our team members at the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority. All right, I'm seeing someone's screen being shared now. I don't know if we have ironed out our technical challenge. Are we ready?
Are you seeing the screen that says brief history?
No. I'm seeing your email, your private email on screen.
Okay. Yes. Are you seeing it now?
I am seeing it now.
You're seeing it now?
Yes, we are seeing it. So, Mr. David, you're ready to proceed?
Okay, sure.
Starting from this slide?
Yes, we are starting on this slide. So,
okay. All right, great.
Sorry about I'm sorry about the technical glitch again. These things do happen at times. These are some of the issues that we have to work to get things better to serve you. So we start with a brief history of the laboratory, where you can see that we have launched the energy efficiency test program in October 2017. This launch was done through the project from the World Bank, as was discussed previously. We have gone through a commissioning testing facility in July 2018 of the laboratory. The lab started conducting energy efficiency tests in January of 2019. Upon started conducting those energy efficiency tests in 2019, then we have the emergence of the regional energy efficiency program ready to get started. We started a soft launch there and started a soft testing where we started to test refrigerators for the local market in Jamaica. But our overall objective was to try to get the laboratory up to a level to test at a regional level. So we want to push things out there to suit the region. Because of doing so, we have tried to acquire stuff to help us to get this to that level. And in doing so, we have acquired devices that could help us to test at a higher level for just to suit the region. Knowing that the region has different voltages, frequencies, and power supplies and all those, we have to cater for each and every one. So our laboratory have gone back to the drawing board and we try to come up to improve our testing capabilities to suit for refrigerators and air conditioners. When we started with 6 test stations chamber. This 6 test station chamber, as it is called, it only has the capability of testing 6 refrigerators simultaneously. But to suit a region, we have to improve our capability, we have to improve our capacity, we have to improve the types of products also that we want to test, because we realize that cooling is very important. In any household, cooling operates and takes more energy than anything. So we look and we zoom in on refrigerators and air conditioners. So if we can try to reduce the energy bill of the nation and of the region to an extent. So what we have done, in getting help, we got to improve to 10 test station chamber where we can test 10 refrigerators simultaneously. And in this 10 test station chamber, while we can test 10 refrigerators simultaneously, it helps us to test also for the region. We have gone to the drawing board. Jamaica started testing at a 43 degrees Celsius. And we realized that the region is looking at 32. So we try to go back to the drawing board with our help from CrossQ, and we have ironed out things where we try to come to a test temperature, an ambient of 32 for the entire region. So this gives us the capability of testing for the entire region. Thanks to the types of power supply that we have in the laboratory, we can test at a different frequency. So if we have one ambient temperature of 32, then we can test for all the regional countries, their samples simultaneously with the one ambient temperature of 32 degrees Celsius. So we have come to the consensus that that's the road we're going to take to test at 32. An ambient of 32 for this tropical climate that we are here in experience in the entire region. And this helps us to test at whatever power supply, 110, 220, whatever the power supply. We have variable power supply equipments in the laboratory that can facilitate whatever types of product comes in to test in the laboratory. So we have the capability of testing for the region and for the world to an extent. Our air conditioning testing chamber is a new chamber that is added to the testing for the laboratory. And we have acquired also a power supply to test at 50-60 cycle for the entire region. We could not have done this without the help from UNDP. And we thank UNDP for their help in helping us to acquire such a power supply. So we can boast that we can test for the air conditioner units as well at 50 and 60 cycle to suit the region and the world to an extent. What we can do for refrigerators is to test 16 at full load, 16 refrigerators simultaneously, / wine chillers, and we can test air conditioner units. Whether the air conditioner units be inverters or non-inverters, we can boast that we can handle these types of testing for the region. What we face with, we try to build our competence capacity of our staff. And as I mentioned before, that myself and Kathleen Gregory Jackson, we have gone to training of staff to ANSI. And these trainings were funded and helped out by CrossQ. And we have trained our engineers to build our competence in the testing of air conditioners and refrigerators in ANSI, Mexico. And this type of testing that we have carried out for it, and ANSI is simply for the testing for ANSI that they have trained us to do, it's build our capacity to an extent where we can do volumetric and we can do energy efficiency testing of the refrigerators. And we have done training to do also a capacity of energy testing for the refrigerators and also for the air conditioner units to bring it to a level that to show our competence. To prove our competence after we have gone through such a training is that the lab have successfully completed 2 proficiency tests with ANSI in November 2020. And we also have testing in proficiency testing in air conditioners in that year. What we have done,
Mr. David, just a moment. Your screen has not moved. I don't know if you have slides that you want to project. It's still at brief history, just to in case it's not recognized. So
okay.
This has not moved. I think you should. Well, if that is going to be a challenge, then you can proceed. I'm just bringing it to your attention in case you realize that it is so.
Are you seeing it now?
It's still at brief history. That is what is projected on screen now. But if it is going to be a challenge to project, then you may proceed. Okay, I'm seeing competency and capacity now.
Right. Thank you. So the competency and capacity, as I explained before, is that we try to build our staff in the laboratory to build our competence in the testing of these appliances. And we have also gone through successfully completed a proficiency test with ANSI in the testing of refrigerators and air conditioners, meaning that when we acquire a refrigerator and an air conditioner unit from ANSI, we have tested it, they have tested it before, and when we compare the results, we fall very close to them. So we can see that our competence was up there for the testing. And our laboratory staff also received training from CTS, which is the climatic testing system. That's the manufacturer of our laboratory in troubleshooting. So we can handle some of the troubleshooting issues that we face to bring the lab up to speed and back on scale when we are faced with challenges. What we try to do with our competency is to ensure that whatever results we are putting out here, we are confident that these results stand within the range of other laboratories as we would go along. We also will introduce you to the energy efficiency consumption of refrigerator samples. what we use to test the refrigerator sample, we adhere to the CRS 57 labeling standard, which will use the AM HRF1 2016 as the testing standard that is referred in that particular standard to test the consumption of refrigerator. And we have looked at CRS 59 standard presented to us by the cross-Q, and we would look at also a standard, an ISO 5151 standard for the testing of the air conditioner units. What we have done here is to ensure that the standards that we're using are internationally recognized to test our units as we go along, and to ensure once it is internationally recognized, the results will be internationally accepted as we go there to offer testing for our region. In testing, it takes a process. Firstly, we have done like a volumetric measurement and test setup of the refrigerators using the AM standard. What we have done in this standard is to ensure that when you have a volume of a refrigerator and you measure the volume, after you do the energy consumption test, then this energy consumption test should not exceed this energy consumption measurement in the volumetric when it is converted to kilowatt hour per year consumption. And then we would combine a MEPS.
Yeah, Nigel, just a moment. We are getting some interference. I think Diana, if you recognize that your mic is open.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, it
All
was
right.
me.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
Right. So what we have done in this regard is to, even through the proficiency exercise that we have participated in, we have done volumetric measurement of a unit to ensure that this volumetric measurement is accurate, because you have to have accurate volumetric measurement so that whenever you compare the energy consumption test with it, it will come out to be within what it's supposed to be. If there's a big difference or an error on the technician, the engineers in the laboratory in carrying out this measurement, then it can cause a big problem. So we have to ensure accuracy and closeness in measurement. So we have participated and comes out successfully in such an exercise. We have done thermocouple placements in the refrigerator units, and we have to place these thermocouples at geometric centers that can mimic, or we can simulate where the energy is taken in the refrigerators at these centers to gives you back a proper energy consumption calculation to give you a yearly consumption in an extent. What we looked at also is testing of air conditioner samples for you. And the testing for air conditioner samples as we go ahead is to ensure that these testing of the air conditioner samples, we have a psychometric balanced ambient calorimeter, meaning that we have an indoor side and an outdoor side. So we'll mimic your indoor and your outdoor environment where the air conditioner will be placed in the home. And we try to do an energy consumption test of these units to ensure that whenever you said that you are getting this cooling, that's what you are getting from the unit. And in using these units for those tests, we have to, in the end, come up with EER, which is an energy efficiency ratio for the units. And we would try to ensure that there is an index that we will introduce and speak about, that the index, you will not exceed a particular amount of energy that you're supposed to, each unit is supposed to consume. When Dr. Richard speaks about certain information that we need previously, these information that we need is to ensure that whenever we are making a comparison of these units with the energy consumption test. You are bragging that, say, for instance, you have a cooling of particular in BT, which is British Thermal Units. You are going to brag that you have 12,000 BTU. When we test, it should be given that amount of BTU, or else we would have to give you something that is not ready, or it's not ready for the market. So we wanted that to come on to a level of energy efficiency that is suitable. If you are selling a car and you said it can go that speed, that's the speed we're going to test it at. So when you give us those information, we want information that is accurate, that we can plug into our system to give you back a fair result that you brag that you can offer. So we encourage you to purchase or to liaison with manufacturers that can do such type of design, such types of unit. And in designing such types of unit, it must be energy efficient and suitable for the Caribbean market. What we are trying to do in this process is to eliminate certain units that are not suitable for our market and to prevent the Caribbean from becoming a dump from the outside world, because we cannot accept units here that are not energy efficient. With us accepting and forcing manufacturers, forcing importers, forcing everyone to bring in energy efficient unit, in an extent, it will reduce the energy bill of the region. And that's what we're aiming for. And we wanted information for the inverters also, to vary the speed of inverters, to ensure, that is referring to the air conditioner units, to ensure that we can vary the speed, or else we would have to give you a worst case scenario test, which you might not like and you might not be pleased with when we put it at that. So we encourage you to send the information when you are doing registration, the required information, and with these required information, we will use the required information to give you your best results, so to speak, that you can use, and you can brag that you will get energy efficiency that is suitable for our market and for the world at large. We have gone through other areas, and we invite other guests on the program that are looking at other aspects to deal with also a cooling initiative. And David Barrett is one person from that entity that is also looking at the types of refrigerant that these units are using. So those are some of the things. Mind you, we are not using R22 anymore. So you have to be careful as to the types of refrigerant that is used in these particular appliances that you are purchasing to bring into the country. And we also have to focus on the environment at large. Global warming is serious also. So we have to focus on these things to ensure that we pay strict attention to our global warming potential components that are coming in, and to reduce global warming in an extension. We looked at the turnaround time. What we have here on screen is just a rough thing to tell you. You will see 2 weeks. 2 weeks should be 3 weeks, and we're sorry for that. And 4 weeks should be 10 weeks for a complex component. Why we said 2 weeks, why we said 3 weeks is that the refrigerator, testing the refrigerator, it takes some time. As you can see, we have gone through volumetric measurement, setup, and we haven't gone through all the setup of the refrigerator because we have to cut into the compressor. We have to cut into the defrost heater to ensure that whatever we are testing for the current, for the voltages, is the exact thing that is coming from the unit that we want to measure it to be. Why we would extend this 4 weeks to 10 weeks, this 4 weeks to 10 weeks is for complex units. When I said complex units, testing a refrigerator takes time in the extent that you would have to test it at warmest and coldest temperature. And based on the complex types, you have units that have 2 compressors. And when they have 2 compressors, we have to test it twice for one compressor, test it twice for another compressor, and then we combine and test these types of units. So just in case such type of unit comes on the market, then we have to give ourselves time to deal with such types of unit. And you can work with testing of air conditioner samples for 1 week for testing, and we will give you a turnaround time that is suitable for you to go ahead. We also have to facilitate the region. If the regional body want to send things here for testing, in the CARICOM, this is a center of excellence, the laboratory that will test for air conditioners and refrigerators. So we have to cater for you. You will not be sending this unit through our NCRA. You will be sending it directly to the BSJ. In sending it to the BSJ, we will not provide brokerage services because of issues that we're faced with. Manufacturers should submit samples via a door-to-door shipper. Manufacturers should arrange to have local distributors collect samples after a test report has been generated. So you can see, we give you an example that you can use FedEx and you can use DHL to do such types of medium to bring in products for testing. I will allow my moderator.
Maria, your mic is open.
Probably she's excited. I will allow my.
We're getting some interference. All right, go ahead, Nigel.
Right, so I will stop here for testing, and whatever question you have to ask at the end of the presentation, of all the presentations, then you can throw them at me, throw them at the team, and we will answer you accordingly. So this was my presentation, and I want to say, finally, we are ready to launch, and we look forward for your participation. Back over to my moderator to introduce our other speaker. Thank you.
So we'll now go directly into the next presentation. Ms. Mattis, are you ready?
So ladies and gentlemen, you have heard from Dr. Richards on the regulatory requirements. You have heard from Nigel on the testing and technical regime as it relates with the Bureau standards. So now for what I consider the most exciting part of this presentation, which is the big reveal of the label. But before we get into the label, I just wanted to give you a brief overview of some of the most popular energy efficiency labels that are currently in the market globally. More specifically, the ones that are being imported to Jamaica. So as you see on screen, where I highlighted 4.
We're not seeing that slide just yet, Tanisha. Next, it's not being projected yet. We're still at testing for CARICOM markets. You need to advance the slide.
I think so. Yeah. This slide. Stop share. And then the presentation. It's on here. This one. The second one is on 42. And 42. And then this one. This one.
Yes, we're seeing it now.
This is what they are seeing. You are seeing this screen, and this is to guide you to see what is coming up next. Okay. How do I start back?
We're actually seeing your screen now, Tanisha. We're at global overview and the labels.
Okay, so you're hearing me now?
Yes, we are hearing.
Okay, great.
We'll see.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview before I reveal the label. I just want to give you a brief overview of some of the most popular energy efficiency labels that exist globally, specifically the ones that are being imported to Jamaica. I picked out Mexico, China, India, and USA. For Mexico, we see there, Mexico has a mandatory program that covers over 13 appliances. China has also a mandatory energy efficiency program covering over 13 appliances. India as well, over 15 appliances. And then the United States has a combination of mandatory and voluntary programs covering most appliances. So ladies and gentlemen, our official energy efficiency label. Yay! All right, so let me just take you through the labeling aspects. So this is our official label. As you can see, it's more simple. The average consumer with a little education would be able, to understand the label. So up the top, we have the regulatory agency BSJ, CARICOM, and just to indicate that this is a CARICOM label, which means that every country within the CARICOM region will be utilizing a similar label. So on the top right-hand corner, and this is just a specimen of a label, the manufacturer, which right here we have David's, the model number. So the technical information will be on the top hand corner. The capacity of the appliance. On the left-hand side, we have the type of unit, which in this case is a refrigerator. It's an automatic defrost. Going below, the most important part, the estimated yearly operating costs, which here is denoted as $12,000. So this is telling the consumer, it will cost your household annually $12,000 to operate this particular refrigerator. Beneath that, we have the kilowatt per hour. And on the left side, which is another important aspect, is the energy class. So we have denoted this in 6 levels, from A to F, with A denoted here in green being the most efficient, down to F, which is the least efficient. So when a consumer gets into a showroom and they are presented with an appliance with our energy label, they will be able to make a more informed decision based on the information that is presented in front of them. And as you can see, labels are important. It gives them the option, gives the consumer the option to purchase, and also it promotes or forces the manufacturer to produce more energy efficient appliances. So again, going back, so A being more efficient, the most efficient, and F being the least efficient. So here in CARICOM, we would only be allowing appliances that would run from A to E. So if your appliance is running on F, then you won't be allowed to be selling on the local market. Below that, we have our security feature, which we're very excited about this feature here, where you have the scan barcode. This will allow for us to carry out a more regime and rustic enforcement action and monitoring when the inspectors will go into the marketplace. Okay, so let's talk about another important aspect, the program cost. So this particular slide is speaking specifically to the importers. So the program cost is currently at $100,000, and this is every 2 years. So basically, it's $50,000 per year. So you will register at a one-time cost of $100,000. And this involves your pre-shipment certification, the analysis of the test result, any documentation, and any verification that needs to be done. Another cost associated with the program is the labels. So each label will cost 300 Jamaican dollars. And again, these costs are noted in Jamaican dollars. So each label, $300. And So if you're declaring that you are importing 100 refrigerators, you will require to purchase 100 labels. If you're importing 300 room air conditioners, you will be required to purchase a label for each unit. All right, so as it relates to the testing costs, so we have divided the costs in terms of the type of appliance. So as you can see on screen, a chest freezer, a manual is $88,647 versus a chest freezer that is automatic, it's $106.57, sorry, $106.572. Did I say that correctly? Right. And then it goes down, we have upper freezer manual, basic refrigerator. So you will go through this cost. This presentation will be sent to you via email, so you'll be able to go through the cost and select which ones would be applicable to you. For the AC units, as you can see at the bottom of the slide, it's $74,140. And also for inverter side-by-side automatic defrost is $106,000. Again, these are per sample, and a sample is 1 unit. So again, if you're submitted the room air conditioner, if you are an importer of room or manufacturer of room air conditioner and freezer / refrigerator, then you're required to pay this amount per sample. All right, and that ends my part of the presentation. I will hand over to our moderator for the question and answers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Tanisha. Now we are at the point in the program where we will address your questions. I note we have a number of questions in the chat. So I'm just gonna go, I've been going through that section, and let me just address. So what I'm gonna ask you to do, for those persons who may be speaking, I'm gonna read the chat, but kindly identify your company and your designation. So if you're a manufacturer, retailer, importer, etc., just identify your designation, just so we can make a note of it. All right, so this first question, so I'm going in the order that I'm seeing here. I don't know if Dr. Richard would have addressed that before, Giselle, just you can indicate if that is so. All right, for option A, how many samples do we need to submit? So Dr. Richards, for option A, how many samples do we need to submit? How long does option A process flow take from the moment we submit the samples to obtaining the pre-shipment authorization certificate and labels? And if we address that question, Giselle, was that question addressed, or that is an additional question? I just want to be sure.
10 weeks.
I think it's partially addressed. I actually just added the question again on how many samples do we need per
I'm not hearing it clearly. You're a little bit low. Just project a little bit for me, so I'm not hearing it clearly.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
I'm hearing you a little bit better, yes.
Okay. So it was partially responded to because they just went through the cost and time. However, I'm not clear on how many samples we need to submit per type of item, because I know refrigerator is different than wine cellar and wine cellar is different than AC. So how many samples would that be? And
one sample.
Okay. And then how long does the entire process take? We've already heard the testing part of it, but the entire process from receiving the documentation all the way to being able to obtain the certificate and the labels?
It's going to take 4 to 5 weeks. 5 weeks maximum. So as long as we receive the test result, we can communicate to you that the product is compliant, and we give the label the importer, the relevant importer.
So 4 weeks after receiving the test results from the lab.
No, hold on. Let's go again. No. Receiving the test report, you can get it within 1 to 2 weeks after receiving the test report. After receiving the test report, NCRA receiving the test report, you will communicate to you within 1 to 2 weeks. So it takes 3 weeks to test, 3 to 10 weeks to test. Based on the type of refrigerator, it will take 3 to 10 weeks. So let's say it's a maximum of 10 weeks. Within 2 weeks, we will communicate with you once we have the results.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So the next question. So Baron, your question. When does this start for air conditioners? What is the deadline to register all products and have them tested already? So when does this start for air conditioners? What is the deadline to register all products and have them tested?
Okay, we're ready to start tomorrow morning. So
okay.
You tell us when you are ready. So we're ready to go.
All right.
So Baron, we're ready to go.
Okay, great. So you heard that. So Baron, we are ready once you're ready. So that answers that question.
I understand you're ready, but what is the deadline? What is the latest time?
Okay, registration, you can start registration immediately. Okay, registration will be an ongoing process. So it isn't a deadline for registration. We're inviting you to go ahead and register. Set up your account, right? So you need to set up your account and then proceed to register. Okay, you may not have all your models now. However, as you get additional models, you can return to the site and add them, right? And just build out the information in the database.
And when will you start enforcing the restrictions on importation of any products that haven't gone through this process?
Could you repeat that question?
When will you start fully enforcing restrictions on the importation of any products that haven't finalized all of these processes?
Okay, well, we want to hear from you all. We want to hear from you all. When are you going to be ready? If you need 2 months, if you need 3 months, as I said before, we're ready to go. So if you need 2 months, you need 3 months to set yourselves up, we need to hear back from you.
Okay.
That question completely Baron. So I'm not sure if you're hearing. Does that answer? Right. So what Dr. Richard just communicated is that in terms of and correct me if I am not interpreting correctly, Dr. Richard. So in terms of enforcement, it's not immediate because we do recognize that you need some time to get things in order. And so it may be, as you said, a month from now, 3 months from now. So we are listening to you. This engagement session is one forum that we will use to guide us in terms of the next steps and how we proceed.
Okay.
Ms. Maxine, if I may,
yes.
I would suggest that they give us at least 6 months to comply for enforcement because there will be items that will take as long as the 10 weeks that they mentioned in the testing. And if we have to include the time it takes for us to work on getting the information all the way to our manufacturers, from them to produce the samples, having to submit the samples, and getting like the whole process will not take 2 months. So I don't know if there are other importers or manufacturers in the call, but normally this type of regulations give, in some cases, even a year to be enforced.
Not only that,
Yeah.
I mean, we may need also to make some engineering changes. We may need to make some design changes or improvements to comply with the regulations, and those processes can take additional months, if not years. Hopefully they won't be needed, but it's not only about bringing samples and testing them, but it's about so many complex issues involved here. I mean, preparing samples, bringing them from overseas, submitting them, getting all this paperwork done. It's not just an overnight thing. I mean, we need to have a deadline, like saying that January 1st of 2023 or June the 30th of whatever 2022 or some sort of a deadline for us to be able to know when this is going to be enforced.
Yes, in our experience in other countries, they always give us a minimum 6 months until 12 or 18 months, 18 months. So we need to prepare. For example, if I'm a distributor, I need to prepare with my clients. I need to prepare my samples and how we are going to manage this, because it's not easy to say 3 months we are going to apply this, we are going to get forced.
Okay, let me respond this way. This program was launched in 2017, and most of the local importers and distributors would have been aware of this, okay? And persons were invited to tour the lab and all of these things, all right? So what we are doing, as we said in the beginning, we are re-engaging you in terms of getting registered and becoming compliant. The lab is now ready and raring to go with respect to testing. So with this engagement that we're having now, this forum, what we want to hear from you, as I said before, we are ready to go tomorrow morning, we're ready. What we want to do, however, is to hear from you, okay? It's not only about telling you what to do, we want to hear from you. So if you need 6 months or you need 1 year, we need to hear that from you, okay? Some of you have already been doing what we presented this morning, okay? On a regular basis, I have discussions with some of the major manufacturers of refrigerators in the world on a very regular basis. Some of you guys have already been submitting your pre-shipment documents, your quality certificates, test results and such. You've already been doing it. Not all of you, but several of you have already been doing it. So this is what we are saying. We are flexible in terms of working with you and your timeline, but there has to be a cutoff point. Now, we don't want to say, okay, by September 30th, 2021, cutoff. We want to hear from you. Okay? Different companies may have different issues, all right? You may already have products on the market, that type of thing, all right? So we're giving you some time, and then you're going to hear from us what we think is reasonable, all right? And another thing, please identify yourselves, your companies, when you speak. I recognize some of you, I don't others. So please identify your company as you speak.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that Dr. Richards. Nisla, you just spoke, I think, but you had a question in the chat here. I'm going according to the order. So the question that you have here, what about the inverter air conditioner? You see, you're saying, I think this normative not applied to SEER. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, but the question was answering the presentation. So.
Okay, great.
So it's good. So it's good. I want to share something about the thing that I think Wendell said before. Yes, for example, me that I work in LG Electronics, I made this for another countries. But for example, I have to have meetings with my clients, because in Jamaica, I have clients that buy my products, and I don't know if I have to submit the information, or they are going to submit the information. So that's things that I have to first talk and see and manage, for example, with you. Maybe later I need a meeting with all of you to concrete out or to clarify all the things, all the questions that I have. And normally, as an experience, we always have like 6 months, as I said before, 6 more, or maybe 8 months.
Lost her audio. I don't know if you're hearing me. I've lost your audio. Is everyone hearing me?
Yes.
All right, we lost the audio from Nisla, and I lost a few seconds of what you were saying. All right, Dr. Richard, I don't know if you caught what she was saying earlier. I lost her for a few seconds. We have another question in the chat. This might have been a.
Ms. Fagan, could repeat her question? We lost her at the end.
Oh, you did. All right. So, Ms. I don't know if you're there. We didn't quite catch the entire narrative just now.
Okay.
Repeat.
Okay.
Well,
Yes, I have a third question. I have
what designation. Just a moment. We just want to identify your designation. Distributor, manufacturer, and what company? Just to
manufacturer, LG Electronics.
Manufacturer. Okay, great.
So for example, maybe it's explaining my business. My clients buy my products and they import to Jamaica. Things like I have to concrete with my clients who is going to register these models first. Second, about the time, of course. As I said before, normally in other countries, they always give us a 6 months to get enforced, minimum 6 months. So this is a change. Maybe we did this before, but this is a new change, and every new change needs to give us a plan to concrete this. Also, another question that I had was if I could apply with equivalent normative, because I have, for example, normative in Panama, in Costa Rica, in Mexico, in every country that required energy efficiency. If I can apply with all the reports that I already have, it's better. It's better for manufacturers because another normative for this region always give us some kind of trouble for we need to try to concrete import issues. We need to modify all the import things that we already do. This is not a change for 2 or 3 months. It's a real big change. And also I have another question. Normally my products go to the clients with a label on the product. Maybe the product could have 2 or 3 labels. So in the store, I have to remove this label, but the product that go to the client will go with the 3 labels. I can't open the box because that is something that we can't do, because the client will not. The client could say, this person opened the box and I don't know if they make some damage. So there's things that we need to clarify.
Okay, Nisla, as we discussed this morning, you don't have to break the box or open the box. Okay, when the consumer is purchasing the appliance, whether it's a refrigerator, freezer, wine chiller, whatever, the distributor or retailer will issue the label with the appliance. So when you're purchasing the appliance, a consumer must expect to get a label. Okay. However, the appliance in the showroom should not have on any of those international labels. Only the local label should be affixed in the showroom. However, I will repeat again, the appliance being sold is okay if the international labels are in the box, but the client should receive a label to accompany that unit. And with respect to timeline, as I said before, we are here to engage you. So we want to hear from you. We want to know, we want to get a range. We want to get to different views. Some persons saying 6 months, some persons saying 18 months. We want to get a range of the views, and we will make a decision when it's a cutoff point. Okay, so we are continuing to listen to you and get feedback from you.
Okay. All right, I think that answers your question, Lisa. Just point to note, we're going to be posting a poll in the, you see pop-up anytime now, just to get your feedback on the session so we can ascertain how useful the information would have been. So we ask you to just take a little time to fill in the poll, not very long, because we really do appreciate your feedback, and this information helps us in planning future sessions such as these and others. So we beg your indulgence just to fill in the poll that is posted. So I'll continue going down the chat and to address some of the questions. All right, so the poll is now posted. I'm seeing it. So please indulge us, go ahead and fill in the poll. Thank you so much. So we have a question. This might have been addressed further down, but let me just state and you can indicate if it was addressed. It's from Baron in relation to the 32 ambient outside. What about inside? At what humidity RH? Again, 32 ambient.
That was also answered by Mr. Allen.
Mr. Allen, great.
Can I add one more question? Oh, by the way, I'm Baron Goxie. I am talking here on behalf of the manufacturer for Pioneer air conditioners. And I have one more question regarding the pre-shipment inspections and certification. As we do this for certain other countries, they require pre-shipment inspections. They direct us to use certain companies that come in and inspect the cargo before they are loaded into the containers at the factory's docks. Is that is that the same thing, that a recognized inspection company comes and verifies that the products that are being prepared to be loaded into the containers actually are the ones on the pro forma, the model numbers match, the quantities match, and any other information that's relevant matches with the paperwork? Is that what you mean by the pre-shipment inspection? And besides that, what else is required? I know you also require some sort of a lab report from a recognized laboratory showing whatever tests that have been done, showing that they comply with your minimum requirements, and we submit those. That is not the problem, but I just wanted to receive some more clarification based on what pre-shipment inspection involves, what is involved in that specific thing.
Okay, pre-shipment refers to documents sent to the regulatory body before the actual shipment or sample comes to Jamaica. Okay, so it's a document inspection, a document stating that this product is compliant in this jurisdiction. This international body has tested the product. This international certification body has certified the products. Okay, so that is what pre-shipment is, the documents. I spoke about inspection. That's a regulatory inspection. For if a regulatory body or a certified regulatory body or an accredited regulatory body has done a regulatory inspection of the products. Not your port documents like the invoice and that type of thing. Inspecting means that it has conformed to the standard. They did a physical inspection and it conforms to the standard, as well as the test results. So let's go again. We're looking at test results if it's available from an accredited lab. We're looking at quality certificates and or inspection certificates if those are available.
Okay.
Someone else asked about batch code. The batch code refers to when the appliance was manufactured, the date when it was manufactured.
Okay. All right. So the next, Giselle.
On the batch code, are you referring to the month, year? Are you referring only to the year?
Yes, the manufacturer's date. So if it's month, year, date, fine. Or date Month, yeah, but the year must be included. Year, month, that's fine.
What, question, when it says that we have to buy the labels, so do we add that information there, or will the labels come with that information since we would have to provide?
No, you need to indicate to us the number of labels you want to require. For example, if you're importing 140 air conditioners or refrigerators, you need to indicate that to us. So when the product becomes compliant after testing, we will issue you with 140 labels.
Can we buy as many labels as we can prior?
No, because we have to have control. We have to have control over the situation. We need to know what.
Mr. Davids, what happens to companies such as ours, where we, as I said before, we're consolidators, so we will not have what you just described. We won't have a container with 112. We would have 6 this week in this one container, then maybe 6 in next week's container. So am I to go every week to get 6 or 12 or 3 or 4 labels at a time? That is very inefficient.
No, but listen, remember what I said in the beginning, you have to plan your shipments, okay? Now, the registration form, it does state your shipments per annum. So if you can estimate you have 6 shipments, and each shipment has 6 refrigerators, that's 36. So you can estimate. So if you are clearing 40, fine, that's not a problem. But we want you to estimate ahead of time and plan ahead of time, because we have to have control, right? We can't just give you a million labels and then somebody's refrigerators coming in are substandard. We have to have control over it. As a regulator, we have to take control. So if you can estimate, we will work with that. So if you have an estimate of 36 and you're actively 45, we're not going to kill you for that. We can work with that, but we need to have control.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So the person who is actually speaking is actually Dr. Richards, though you're seeing Mr. Davids there in the ID, but they're in the same location. So it's actually Dr. Wendell Richards from the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority. He has been the one addressing the questions. All right, so let me go down. So question, Giselle, you did post in the chat. Can we send the refrigerators to be tested in ANSI, Mexico, instead of sending them to Jamaica? So there was mention in the presentation of ANSI, so I suppose it would have come from that.
Okay, yeah, it's just that I know that the ANSI is ANCE, that should be there, but I can look over that. But to send it in Mexico, it's based on their power supply that you're going to use. Mexico laboratory have the capability of testing at 60 cycles. So the difference with Jamaica, now we can test at 50 and 60 cycles in terms of the frequency and any power supply that you're using. So if that suits your region, wherever you are sending it from to Mexico, they are an accredited laboratory, but to bring it into our country, you still have to pay our fee if you're going to do things through us just the same. So we have to do things according to our condition. So that's what we are aiming at. That's why we try to build a laboratory that can do it for the region.
So the question, to address the question, so she send it to sell the item in Jamaica. He has to send it to the lab here in Jamaica to be able to sell it in local markets. Yes?
I guess my question is more on the fact that ANSI can get accredited or can test based on regulation. So if you ask them to test your products with your specific regulation, meeting the standards, the humidity, the temperature, everything, would that be okay, since that would be the same as testing it in Jamaica? I'm just asking because there's a lot of production happening for refrigerators specifically happening in Mexico. So it would make more sense from a cost perspective to have the product sent from a factory in Mexico to a lab in Mexico versus sending it to Jamaica, because these refrigerators are very huge, right? So they will cost a lot to send through FedEx or DHL. I'm just concerned about the cost, and a company like Line, which has many different models and we're constantly changing models, the cost of sending samples will at some point be really high.
So, to address your question, Giselle, in Jamaica, if you are planning to sell that refrigerator on the Jamaican market, we use 50 as a frequency of 50. So Mexico does not test at 50. We test at 50 or 60 for the entire region. So I don't know which point in the region you would plan to sell your product, but once you're coming to Jamaica with that particular product, then we would have to test it for the Jamaican market and also for any other market in the Caribbean that is using the frequency of 50. And the difference is, I don't know their type of power supply that they would be able to test that, but we know that we can test that whatever power supply you test that based on our device that we have in our laboratory here. So to send it here for testing, once you want to use the Jamaican market for your product, you have to test it according to our condition.
And additionally, Giselle, the fact that it's accredited, we will accept those results, all right? So you can, we would give you a pre-shipment clearance to bring a commercial shipment because it's accredited. However, because of the environmental conditions, we're going to have to do testing here. So you're going to have to pay for the testing. So to eliminate the bureaucracy, because it's accredited, you can send the results. However, we're going to have to do testing because of the different environmental conditions and because of the grid, electricity grid in Jamaica, which is 50 cycles.
Thank you.
All right, so that addresses that question. So
I have another question, sorry.
Yes.
Because I want to add something that said Giselle. Right now, in other countries, exist laboratories that use, for example, BSJ send the normative to these laboratories, they will do the test according to Jamaican requirements. So we have these laboratories in special countries that we produce our products like China, like Mexico, Korea, and everything. So it's better for us as manufacturers to, and obviously we could save money to send these samples to these special laboratories that they will give us the results according to the Jamaican requirements. So maybe it could be an option. This could be an option for us as manufacturers to save more money.
I think Dr. Richards.
Yes. Okay, Nisla. In that particular case, we will accept those. We will accept those results. However, we must do verification. We always do verification. It's a compulsory standard. We accept the pre-shipment documents, we review it, we do our traceability investigations. However, we must do verification. We have to ensure that what we gave you a clearance for is actually coming in. So at some point in time, we must do a verification, okay? To answer your question again, yes. If the lab can test at 50 cycles, yes. If it can test at the same ambient temperature, yes, we will accept it.
Okay, that's
however, we must do verification.
Oh, that's exactly what I was asking as well. I mean, if they can prove that they can maintain the same, everything that you request, right? Now, when you're saying verification, does that mean that even though you're accepting the testing, you will at some point take samples and test to verify?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, so you will accept. Thank you so much. That really.
Once it's an accredited lab as well, the lab has to be accredited. Correct, Dr. Richards?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I think this would have addressed that question before, Nisla. Is it mandatory to send samples no matter the option of register? Is it mandatory to send the samples no matter the option of register? Was that addressed, Nisla? Before?
Yes, practically, I was trying to ask if I manufacturer or my clients that are importers, no matter what option that you present, I have to send a sample. But practically, you answer my question, because if I can prove with my laboratories that I can comply with the requirements of Jamaica, maybe it's not necessary a sample, or it is.
Okay, I think that was that addressed. Yes, I do believe. All right, so let us go through. I think this would have been addressed. If our vendors, manufacturers go through program process flow option B and their items get tested and the labels issued, can we as importers import the items without further requirement? If the item already have the labels, will that be enough? Or do we need to provide the testing reports, and or will the items still need to be tested once they arrive in Jamaica? It was quite a bit. So,
okay. Option A was the importers and option B was the manufacturers. The manufacturers need to inform us who are their local distributors or who are importers. Okay, so if it is upfront, the manufacturer is managing the compliance program for that particular model or models. When that product becomes compliant, or even before that product becomes compliant, they need to inform us. So this is one of the things we're asking each manufacturer. Inform us who are your distributors in Jamaica. So when that product becomes compliant, we know who to issue the labels to or who to sell those labels to. Okay, so that's very important. It's not a free for all, right? So it's very important that we get that information. Right? And that's option B. That's option B. So the manufacturer is managing the process. The product becomes compliant. We send you the test results or whatever. But we need to know now who is going to be distributing in Jamaica. So then we have to make sure now that person's registered, right, and sell the labels to that entity.
So if I'm understanding, thank you, that was my question. So if I'm understanding correctly, say Samsung goes ahead and obtains the certification, and I obviously buy from Samsung. So it's a matter of Samsung letting you know that they are selling to me PriceSmart, and then that way I can come and buy the labels from you for every shipment that I make. Is that what is correct?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So what we would like is if you can upfront, let us know who your distributors are. So if you're a Samsung, let us know all the distributors in Jamaica who you're distributing Samsung to, so that we can ensure that they are registered.
Now, in our case, as I said before, we are PriceSmart. So Samsung or LG or any of these manufacturers are really our vendors. So what is it that us as importers would need to request from our manufacturers to confirm that their items are registered or have been registered or certified? Is there an actual document that you give them where you tell them your item passed, it's in compliance, here it is, so that when we are deciding on buying items for Jamaica, we can say, okay, we want to make sure that the items that you're offering are in compliance with Jamaican law and that they have been.
Yeah, we would. Yeah. As I said this morning, we'll be issuing 2 types of pre-shipment authorization certificates. So far, we've been only issuing to the importer. What we're going to be doing now is designing one for the exporter, who is the manufacturer. Okay, so when PriceSmart is purchasing, you can ask to see that pre-shipment certificate, which is really a compliance certificate.
So pre-shipment certificate is what we should be asking our manufacturers.
Yeah, a pre-shipment authorization certificate, meaning that they would have contacted us, we would have tested the product is compliant, and we're saying, yes, you can export this product to Jamaica. So you can ask them for a copy of the certificate.
And then you said we have to make sure that they let you guys know.
Yeah, let us know who.
Is there a specific platform? Is there a specific email, or is there a specific website they need to do this at so that we can inform our vendors where to go and where to do this?
Okay. Remember the presentation this morning. It was twofold. Okay, I spoke to the manufacturers and I spoke to the importers. Okay, so what the manufacturers actually, you see, your case is a bit different. Okay? You're price match, so you're the one importing, right?
Yes.
Others, for example, let's say I see several people from Mabe in the meeting and LG. What they normally do is to contact me via email. Okay, we want to get this particular product on the Jamaican market. So what we would do, we would say, first thing I would say, send me your pre-shipment documents. And I will describe those pre-shipment documents as we've discussed all morning, which are quality certificate, test results, if you have any inspection certificates, right? Meaning the product was inspected by a regulatory authority, a certified regulatory authority, okay? And they would send me those documents. I would check those documents against the standard. If I find them to be satisfactory, or I find them to be compliant, I would communicate to them, okay, these are satisfactory, and I would send them a pre-shipment certificate of authorization, authorizing them to export to Jamaica. So what I'm saying to you now, as a vendor, searching for vendors, you could ask them for that document, meaning they would have been authorized. Those products would have been tested and they are compliant, so you can purchase from them. All right, it's important you get the model numbers. So on that document, we actually state the model numbers that have been approved on the document. We actually state the standard, right, that it has met. Even if it's an international standard, we put it on the certificate.
Understood. And where do we buy the labels? With the NCRA or with the BGAS?
With the NCRA.
Thank you.
I have another question, sorry. In the case of PriceSmart, for example, that I'm from a brand, I made all the shipment certification process, but the label should PriceSmart request to you, to NCR. This is an example.
NCRA, yes, NCRA.
Okay.
I have a question for everyone. I have a question for everyone. Like, for example, I see Miss Nisla is here from LG and Giselle is from PriceSmart, who have been very active. Now, what happens, like, let's say there's a, maybe Miss Nisla and Miss Giselle and other people might understand this question. Like, for example, LG, they have this model called GS65 SPP1, then they have DPP1, and then they have SMP1 and all those stuff. But it's actually 4 models with exact same structure. Everything is same, but the minor differences on the front doors, one is door and door, one is this, one is that. So do we need to submit all 5 SKUs because the body and the engine and everything is the same? So practically is like one certificate should work for all the 5 models, or do we need to really submit all the 5 units specifically, you know?
Okay,
That is
Mr. Sajani, if the changes, okay, and the differences are aesthetic, if it's only aesthetic, you don't have to submit it, but we have to prove that, okay? So normally what the manufacturers would do, they would send me that information. They would say, okay, you've tested this particular product, however, we've changed front panel. For example, it's a stove or whatever it is. They would say, okay, I put a glass top. It's the same exact stove, you tested it. This model just has a glass top. So if it is this other model, we change the color. So if it's a case where the change is aesthetic, you don't necessarily have to submit it for testing, but we must be able to prove, we must be able to verify that it was only aesthetic. So you need to send all the documents possible. And there are companies that do that. They send me all the information to prove that it was just an aesthetic change and not a technical change. However, if you make a technical change to that appliance, it is a new appliance, it's a different appliance. And this process has to go all over again from the beginning. So I hope that's clear. Aesthetic changes, you don't need to submit for testing. If it's a technical change, it has to.
Okay, that means, like, for example, if I'm submitting a sample of a refrigerator, as Ms. Nisla can know also, there are, like, I can put it on the letter that this sample of refrigerator covers these 5 specific models, which are 5 different SKUs. But the label which you have mentioned over here, it says, okay, like, I think you guys can see this, which says the model number of the item. So that means that same model which is going to be tested, that same label will work with all the 5 models or specifically that particular unit itself?
We are going to have to give you labels for each one of the models because the energy efficiency label has to state the model. So if you have different model numbers, we're going to have to issue different labels. Yeah.
Okay, and
sorry, let me answer that question. For example, we have family models. As he said before, we have GS65 SDP, GS65 SPP, but
yes.
normally we have like families, and in other normative, they only test one product and they issue the label for these 3 products. So that's practically what we manage in other countries. I don't know if we are going to manage this same situation here in Jamaica.
Yeah, that was my question also, because you see, we are LG distributors as well. And as in the prior part of the meeting, somebody pointed out that every model has to be tested, whether it is, so I was clarifying this. And my second question is on that label, okay? We are going to put estimated Jamaican dollar value. I think last time we had brought this point as well. I would strongly recommend to reconsider not to put the figure, because sometimes what happens is our local service providers, which is Jamaica Public Service, their rates are fluctuating because of the fuel charge and all that. I do see that you have put here a word called estimated, but a normal Jamaican who is looking at this label, for example, and he's buying a product, and if it says 15,000 and his bill is approximately 16 or 17, it's understood. But sometimes it goes up or down. It might cause a little backfire on the brand name. Like, let's say LG GS65, okay? The label says $12,000 estimated value. But because of the fuel surcharge and a lot of other things and exchange rate, JPS has raised this value. JPS has raised the billing, and now the bill is more higher. Now the electricity is consuming more, then psychologically the consumer thinks, why the LG refrigerator is not good, because on the label it's saying 12,000, but I'm paying 16, 17,000. So this label should not, is my personal opinion, that is label should not say a dollar figure, especially Jamaican dollar figure, where we are totally dependent on inflation and US exchange rate and the fuel charges and a lot of other things. My suggestion is the estimated yearly energy use, 2000 kilowatts is fine, but don't put the Jamaican value on it. That might mislead customers, or it might, bring bad name to the brands and to the people, is my opinion. I don't know if other people are agreeing with this.
I agree with you, Pawan. In other countries, and actually we've had a situation where in another country, and I can't remember which country, the first time they started with their program, they had value, monetary value on it, and they over the course of time removed it because of that situation. And I remember that we as the retailer had a lot of complaints from the members, because the member, even though it says, or our customers, even though it says estimated, the expectation from the general public is that they're expecting that is the number, and they're
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, Giselle. Yeah.
and we had a lot of problems, a lot of mad customers, some of which tried to return the goods. So that was one of the comments we actually as a company did submit when there was the comment time for the law or the draft. We did comment because it misrepresents. That's why I also asked in the chat section, how often does the cost of energy change in Jamaica? If it fluctuates, it really isn't deterrent of everyone in the supply chain.
Okay. Could I just respond here, Pawan, before you continue? Can I just interrupt here? Okay.
All right. Dr. Richard, just a moment. I'm going to give Dr. Richards the last word pretty much in terms of wrapping up this section, but we will make the recording. I did see a question in the chat about having the recording being made available. We will make it available to you. We will also, and sending that recording will include Dr. Richards' email, Mr. David's, so we can continue the conversation pretty much. So Dr. Richards, I'm going to give you the last word, and then we're going to wrap up this session. Unless there's a burning, pressing one additional question, then we'll take that. Otherwise, we will have, as I said, carry on the conversation further. We engage via email and otherwise. So Dr. Richards, go ahead.
Yes. Okay, Giselle and Pawan. Now, the reason why that operating cost is on the label is because it's part of the standard. So what we're going to have to do is probably update the standard. Initially, when we started this, we had the savings. And for this very same reason, we changed the savings because of the fluctuation in the dollar. The Jamaican currency is pegged to the US dollar. And because of the fluctuations, the cost will increase. So we were aware of it. And this is why we put the operating cost, but it's in the standard. That's why it's there. Now, what we have to look at is actually update the standard and maybe remove it. Okay, it's something we're going to discuss internally. So we take your point, so we are aware of it. So we take your point. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for that, Dr. Richards. So at this point, I'm really loving the fact that we had a very robust conversation. We do appreciate the input, feedback, because this guides us. And this is what this session was actually intended to do, to listen to you, to take the information in. And as Dr. Richard would have communicated, there are things that we will in fact take into consideration, and then we will thereafter give you the feedback. So we really do appreciate, once again, you taking the time to be here with us today and to participate in a very robust and fulsome way, which we do appreciate. And at this time, we have come to the end of the session. We thank those persons who participated in the poll. Really do appreciate your feedback. And as I said, so we have a list of all the participants here. So what we will do subsequent to this session, we will send you an email attaching the recording as well as the contact information for the technical team, and you may reach out to them with additional questions. So again, thank you all the heads of the respective entity, Dr. Loris Edwards Brown, Dr. Belton Gooden from both entities, and thank you all as additional stakeholders. Have a good rest of the day, and I'm going to bid you in Jamaica. It's afternoon, so good afternoon.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.